start again. You ready? Okay. There's a couple of canonical notes that we didn't make during the sermon, forgot to make. And the canonical consequences, according to the new code and even the old code, of this approval of the Society of St. Pius X or the Apostles of Jesus Mary. It's important that it says Apostles of Jesus Mary because that's actually the correct title, correct name of our order. In Traditio, someone showed me in Traditio, they said Apostles of Jesus Mary is just a small branch. That's very stupid of them to say that. They should know Apostles of Jesus and Mary is the name of our order. Even though we always probably go by the popular title of the Society of St. Pius X, the name of our order is the Apostles of Jesus and Mary. And they should know that. That's the statutes of the Apostles of Jesus and Mary by the popular title of Society of St. Pius X. Canonical consequences, according to the new code and also of the old code, if a bishop has the right to establish any order in his diocese, he does not need the approval of Rome. So when Cardinal Pauli says, we accept the Apostles of Jesus and Mary as an institute of diocesan right in the Diocese of Buenos Aires, what that means is that Bishop Fillet is approved, and the Superior General and the two assistants are approved as heads of the Apostles of Jesus and Mary in the Diocese of Buenos Aires. It also means that the priests inside of that diocese are approved, and they are therefore under the modernist church, but only in that diocese. Outside of the diocese, they are not automatically approved. There are two things to consider outside the diocese. One is the point made in the joyful announcement of the that we just read, from Medici. The canonical status of the Apostles of Jesus and Mary as a global organization is not dealt with, only in the Diocese of Buenos Aires. However, a diocesan right organization can be anywhere in the world. So the Diocese of Buenos Aires can have a diet order, which can then go and establish another house in another diocese, and another diocese, and another diocese through the entire world, and never become anything other than an order of diocesan right. But in order to do this, the local bishops of the other dioceses must approve of their entering into the diocese. So it creates a kind of a canonical, what seems like a canonical contradiction, but in fact it's not. And that is, members of the Apostles of Jesus and Mary within the Diocese of Argentina are approved by modernist Rome. They are no longer in an irregular situation. However, the other members of the Society of Jesus and Mary, or the Apostles of Jesus and Mary, the Society of Pius X, outside that diocese, remain irregular. Why do they remain irregular? For two reasons. One, because they're not under the Diocese of Buenos Aires. They're under Menzingen, without passing through the Diocese of Buenos Aires. So therefore, they are outside of the approval of the Buenos Aires Diocese. Secondly, they're not allowed to be in their dioceses by the local bishops, because two things are required. One, we have to be approved by a bishop somewhere in the world. Secondly, we must be approved in the diocese in which we are by the local bishop. When the Dominicans or the Franciscans or any order enters into a diocese, they must ask the local bishop for permission. And the local bishop says, yes, you can come into my diocese. And you can run St. Dominic Parish, and you can run St. Benedict Parish, and you can run St. Francis Parish, and so on. But as far as dealing with the faithful are concerned, the bishop is always over the faithful, and no Benedictine monk, no Franciscan, no Dominican, or no member of any religious order or pious congregation has any authority over the faithful. Only the bishop does. By accepting to enter into this canonical structure, it means that in Buenos Aires, SSPX is approved by Cardinal Pauli and therefore approved by Rome. Therefore, he rightly says, let this be accepted as an order of diocesan right. However, Monsignor Pozzo also rightly says that this does not mean the SSPX is approved. See, yes means yes and no means no and yes. This is in order to facilitate the confusion amongst the faithful. But canonically, it's relatively simple. The Diocese of Buenos Aires approves of the priests in that diocese as an order erected and approved in the Diocese of Buenos Aires, just like any other order of diocesan right. This does not infringe upon the rights of other bishops. Other bishops, like the Bishop of Denver, or the Bishop of Paris, or the Bishop of Fribourg, these bishops can choose to reject the apostles of Jesus and Mary and say, in my diocese, I don't accept them. And therefore, they are canonically irregular in those dioceses and yet remain canonically regular in the Diocese of Buenos Aires. There's no approval between the Rome and Menzingen. Now this is bad in multiple ways. If I was a lawyer defending Bishop Flay, I would say you shouldn't accept this. Because if you accept to be under this bishop in diocesan right, and under that bishop diocesan right, under another bishop diocesan right, you end up having 10 different, 20 different, 100 different societies, St. Pius X, each under different bishops. Therefore, your society becomes divided. You don't want that. What you want is approval by modernist Rome. Get your approval by modernist Rome. Don't accept approval from the local superiors. If you accept approval from the local bishops, it means that they will be able to isolate that branch of the Society of St. Pius X from the mainstream Society of St. Pius X and chop the SSPX into a million little pieces. So canonically speaking, to accept to be under the local bishop of Buenos Aires equals profoundly stupid. It is a trap. And a lawyer defending, a canon lawyer, on the side of the SSPX should say, no, don't fall for that trap. It's a trap that will divide the SSPX into multiple parts. For instance, one of the consequences that could happen when the Superior General's term comes up in 2018, perhaps at that time there may be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different dioceses that approve the Apostles of Jesus and Mary as orders of diocesan right. Though they may have the same name, there'll be 10 separate and distinct orders, which means in 2018 they can elect 10 separate superiors and thereby divide the whole society. Furthermore, canonically, in order to elect the same superior, the 10 different orders would have to have 10 different elections electing the same man. We do this in the United States all the time. For instance, in the U.S., every single diocese and every single house has its own individual president. So every year we have to have elections. And in the elections and in the decisions, we decide in Denver that Father Rostan is the superior of Denver. Meanwhile, they make another decision in California that Father Rostan is superior of California. They make another decision in New York that Father Rostan is superior of New York. When Father Rostan changes and Father Wegener comes in, there's a movement made in New York that says now Father Wegener is superior in New York, and Father Wegener is superior in Denver, and Father Wegener is superior in California. The reason why this is done is that if there's a lawsuit or there's an attack against the SSPX in California, it will affect only the organization of California, so that they can take away the properties of California, or they can sue California, and the superior of California, who happens to be a man by the name of Father Wegener. However, it won't affect Denver, it won't affect the other properties and organizations, because they're each separate legal organizations, which by coincidence happen to have some same members on the organization, same president, same vice president, same treasurer. But the other ones are different. If the Society of St. Pius X, mainstream, Apostle Jesus and Mary, accepts to be a diocesan rite in Buenos Aires, then a diocesan rite in Paris, then diocesan rite in Denver, 3 separate orders, then Rome will be able to legally come in and say, I'm sorry, but the Superior General of Buenos Aires is not the Superior General of Denver. And the Superior General of Denver is not the Superior General of the California and so, of Paris and so on. And so it becomes a way to chop up in little bits the SSPX. So not only is it very evil because of the fact that we're compromising with modernism and heresy, it's also a very bad canonical move to make because it facilitates the ripping apart of the SSPX as a single organization, and it begins to isolate it. It lays a canonical and legal foundation to isolate and destroy the SSPX. So that's one point we got to mention in the sermon there. There are many, many reasons that this event of last week was not a happy and joyful event. The most important of which is because it signifies our acceptance. If we are another order inside of the Diocese of Buenos Aires, we thereby accept the other modernist orders within that society, within that diocese. We cannot step upon their toes. We cannot open any new church or priory without the permission of the local bishop. We can only administrate the ones that already exist, and the SSPX Buenos Aires is dead. For whom is this a joyful event? For those that want the SSPX and Catholic tradition to be dead. And for those that do not want SSPX and Catholic tradition to be dead, it's not a joyful event. So that's sufficient there. Any questions there, whatever? Or, yeah. Well, see, it's interesting. There's just no reaction whatsoever.
That's because most people don't comprehend and that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah. Well, what it boils down to, I think, is that the majority of people have accepted we're going to be part of the mainstream organization. They accepted it.
They're doing it little by little to each diet. They'll come over here, like you said, Sanford. And
right. They'll go all over the place, but in fact, they are not doing it little by little. The SSPX is already dead because it's no longer professing the Holy Roman Catholic faith, and it's no longer condemning the errors and heresies of modernism as errors and heresies. Not criticizing, like criticizing your wife or your husband, but condemning as errors and heresies, no more. It has not repudiated the April 15th, 2012 declaration. Not only that, but it has in writing refused to repudiate. It is officially not repudiating the doctrine contained in April 15, 2012. It has officially accepted and then officially not repudiated or retracted. That's a confirmation of the heresies contained in the April 15th document, which are therefore official teachings of the organization called the Society of St. Pius X, or the Apostle Jesus and Mary, under Bishop Fillet. And therefore, any priest who wants to be faithful to that organization, as it was founded by Joseph Lefebvre and the constitutions of our society, must, in conscience, denounce this April 15th declaration and all the heresies contained therein, and the whole new move which consequent of it, which is, of course, this move to modernist Rome. It's just a consequence. It's not important in and of itself. It's a consequence of the heresies contained. Therefore, then because that's the truth, it's not important. The actual event of last week is not that important. It's just another day and the announcement of the death of the SSPX.
One of the 6 conditions Bishop Fillet had already accepted to be
right.
a bishop.
It's one of the 6 conditions.
It's just one of the implements.
That's correct. In July of 2012 rather, on July 14th, the Society says, we accept to be under the local bishops. This is the living out of that acceptance.
this was the 20.
This was the public
Declaration?
the 6 conditions that were made known in 2012 at the end of the declaration, the general chapter of 2012. This is simply an implementation of that. That's all.
It reminds me of the movie Martin Sheen for the Priest.
Oh yes,
Where, you know, they had a very conservative
the abbot,
abbot.
who didn't even believe in God.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
All the priests were upset about this modernist guy showing up. When he first showed up, he wasn't dressed like a priest.
Right.
So the guy's wrong. He says, you know, I'm a priest.
No, you're not.
No,
So you
you're
go.
not.
Just take a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
But then in the end, what happens?
He
The whole
says,
monastery accepts.
don't worry about them because they will follow me, and that's it. They will object.
Oh, that's true. That's exactly what the abbot said at the very end. The abbot that doesn't believe in God.
Right.
He says, don't worry about these priests inside the monastery that are against the new mass and against the changes of Vatican III, but they'll follow me. And he was right. And it's exactly Bishop Fillet. And what's interesting also about that abbot, he doesn't even believe in God. And it's interesting when he admits to Martin Sheen that he doesn't believe in God. And Martin Sheen was going to fire him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once he admits he doesn't believe in God, what does Martin Sheen do? He keeps him in the post. He stays abbot. So he was going to be removed as abbot, but then once he verifies that he doesn't believe in God, and he's going to make everybody go along with it, with the modernism of Martin Sheen, no problem. He keeps his job.
Reminds me of the Redemptorists in Ireland too.
Yeah, they did a similar thing. But again, another thing to note throughout this whole crisis of this modernist move of the SSPX, the majority of people like it. The majority of people are in favor of going towards modernist Rome because now we can still have our Latin Mass, we can still be conservative, but we can also be normal.
We heard that from people in St. Jude in Pennsylvania. There was like a big division, and people were yelling at me saying, we need some normalization.
Right.
And
Normal.
I said to them, normal to be Catholic is what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Following Rome is not normal.
That's correct.
So she got upset with me, and a few other people got upset. So I says, well, see, what could I do? If you want to pay taxes, go ahead, be my guest. I'm not.
Right. What were you saying, Madam?
Don't you think that it's like in the frog that gets
It's boiled, right?
well,
Slowly.
but from the parishioners' not point of view, but
Right,
from
perspective.
the parishioners' perspective, that they're not saying this about Argentina or anything.
Well, I think some priests are announcing it. It's announced, what I just read in the sermon was
Yeah, but I don't think it was announced
SSPX.org.
in over here, St.
Maybe not, I'm sure not
I
everybody
have
is
the
one.
bulletin from there, but I didn't
They
hear
didn't mention
anything
it.
like
They didn't
that.
mention it.
No, and I just think that maybe from the people don't even, a lot of the people don't even realize because
Well, you know, the fact is that, you know, when you,
the bishop about the
they don't
bishop.
realize because they
They're
don't
under
want
the
to
bishop.
realize.
Yeah,
There's a will involved,
yeah, I understand.
right? The information is out there. You know, the news is out who won the Super Bowl this year. But if you're not into football, you're not going to know the news.
Right.
So, you see, but if you love football, you're going to know the news. You're going to know who won the Super Bowl, right? Because of the passing the ball.
Well, I said something a long time ago.
On third down, yes.
I
Anyway,
said
go ahead, yes.
something a long time ago to Kimball. You know,
Yes.
Kimball is not Father Kimball, but some of
The new Father Kimball.
well, no, not the not
Oh,
the
Mr.
priest.
Kimball, his brother, okay.
The mother.
The mother, okay,
The
sure.
wife,
Sister-in-law,
not
right.
the older one.
Yeah,
I guess not, but anyway, it doesn't matter really. But when that, and I said, you know, this was when it first came out, everything, 2 years ago, I guess, or 3 years ago. I said to her, well, what, you know, the bishop, we might be under the bishop. This when
right.
in Syracuse, you know, we might be under the bishop. That's gonna, like I wanted to see what she was going to say. She goes, yeah. She didn't like that.
Right. But yet,
But
you know,
then
there's a lot of things you don't like, but you live with, you know.
frog, like the frog.
Right.
I'm just thinking.
But again, it's been mentioned, so it was made known in 2012 that we're willing to be under the local bishops. Now, in 2015, here we are. We've accepted the local bishop. And it's such a joyful event. Yes.
And yet, the priest and the local parishes, like Father, the elderly Father Dick Post in Syracuse,
Yes.
stated, we're not accepting anything. We're
Right.
going to be stay the same, and all this, they're going to say, you could argue with me, you know, and I would argue with you. So I said, okay, I'll see you later. So,
Right.
like, came around, nobody was there.
Right.
Because they're very quick to try to intimidate you,
Right.
and then when you are not intimidated,
Well, this is a fear of being expelled. Like in Los Angeles, I said Mass, and about 2 different families or 3 different families didn't come to Mass because they were afraid of being expelled.
right.
You know, their kids are in La Salette, their kids are in the school in Arcadia, their kids are in St. Mary's, you know, etc. And so they're afraid of being expelled by Father Staffke. Now, the thing is that, did Father say he was going to expel them? No, he didn't say anything. It's just an overall environment of fear. So Father Staffke can always, I didn't say I was going to expel him. But there's an environment of fear. That's what's working amongst those people who desire to be conservative. It's in the Gospel of St. John chapter 9. The man born blind, he was cured. The Jews came to his mother and father and said, how was he cured? And he said, I don't know. We don't know. He's of age, ask him. And what does it say in the Gospel of St. John chapter 9? They knew exactly how he was cured. They knew precisely what happened.
Yes,
They were
but
witnesses of proof of the miracle. But you know what?
the best buck.
He's of age. He's over 21. He can drink now. And he's going to have to answer the question. And we can say that he's our son. We can say that he was born blind. And we can say that now he sees. How it happened, we have no earthly idea. That's called a lie. But they said, no, it's not our problem. Because of the fear of being cast out of the synagogue. Did the Jews say, if you tell us the wrong thing, we're going to cast you out of the synagogue? No, they didn't. But it was an environment. So likewise, Father Stapke and the other priests, some of them maybe will expel them, others won't. But the fear is there, and when you have that kind of fear, you should allay it. You should turn, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to expel you. We got our kindergartner expelled just down the street here. You know, right?
Couple of them.
Yeah, you know, expelled because of the resistance, you know. So I don't know.